last year, the lack of energy is something that you talked about at certain points of the season, and y'all eventually climbed out of that. You're obviously not playing, but what, as coach, is something that you can do to instill the energy in your guys?
Bad check, see what time to go to sleep. I'm just joking. No, I think we've talked about it. You can ask them. We've talked about this slow start.
Jason Kidd shocked everyone with a move few expected. He openly challenged LeBron James, and there was nothing subtle about it. After LeBron's latest comment blew up online, Kidd responded bluntly, raising serious questions about LeBron's leadership, responsibility, and whether his constant explanations are starting to wear thin. This isn't random criticism or social media noise. It's coming from a Hall of Famer who understands the game at the highest level and clearly isn't convinced by LeBron's narrative anymore. So what exactly did LeBron say, and what pushed Kidd to speak out now? Let's break it down.
I just asked you a question.
And I'm giving you a answer. Like, you guys, there's all right to write positive stuff. People will read your positive. You don't always have to be negative, right? Like, it's just the world's already negative enough, right? So let's see some positive stuff on some positive people that are playing, doing their job on a nightly basis.
Making it a lot easier to do that this year.
Well,
it began with another loss. Another night where the expectations didn't match the result, and all eyes turned to LeBron James for an explanation. As usual, he had one ready. This time, the blame shifted to the schedule. Back-to-backs, travel fatigue, not enough rest, and how the league structures the season. Everything, it seemed, except what actually happened on the floor. To be fair, LeBron isn't wrong about the grind. The NBA season is relentless, 82 games, non-stop travel, limited recovery. It's a marathon that wears down even the best players. But that reality applies to everyone. Every team plays under the same conditions. So when LeBron points to scheduling as the reason for a loss, people take notice, and this time they noticed in a big way. Social media lit up almost instantly. Twitter filled with reactions from every direction. Some fans rushed to his defense, arguing he was simply telling the truth about the demands of the league. Others sounded fed up. The tone shifted from "here we go again" to a sharper question. How long do the excuses keep coming for someone labeled the greatest of all time? The moment went viral not just because of what LeBron said, but because it fit a familiar pattern. It wasn't an isolated comment. Over the past few seasons, fans have started cataloging the explanations: age, injuries, teammates, coaching, and now the schedule. But this time felt different. This time, someone with real basketball authority decided to respond. And that voice belonged to Jason Kidd.
What else has happened this year?
A lot of injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of injuries. But I just felt, we were going to stay around 11. If not, go backwards, just the way that things were going for us this year. But incredible to get number one. Everyone's excited. The organization, the city, the Mavs fans, and also the head coach. So we're really excited about being number one.
Planning on keeping the pick.
This is where the conversation starts to get uncomfortable for LeBron fans, because when you step back and look at the last few seasons, a pattern emerges, and it's not exactly flattering. It's the kind of pattern that makes you pause and think about leadership, accountability, and what it really means to be the face of a franchise. Let's rewind to 2023. After a disappointing playoff exit, LeBron pointed to a roster that, in his view, simply wasn't built to win a title. On the surface, that assessment wasn't wrong. Teams are only as strong as their weakest link, and championships require depth, skill, and cohesion. But the way he framed it sent a message, whether intentional or not. It implied that the failure was something outside of him, something beyond his control. And in basketball, as in life, how you frame your response to setbacks says a lot about who you are as a leader. Move forward to 2024 and the narrative shifted, but the trend remained. Post-game comments began highlighting coaching decisions, the way certain plays weren't called, or the team's lack of shooting in critical moments. Again, these are reasonable points. Any athlete at the highest level would notice these factors. But here's the thing, the focus was consistently outward. The challenges, the shortcomings, the blame, they were all surrounding him, never fully internalized. Now in 2025, the pattern continues. The conversation turns to the grueling schedule, back-to-back games, travel fatigue, wear and tear on a body that has been in elite shape for 2 decades. These are all legitimate obstacles. Nobody denies that. But once again, the simplest, most fundamental form of accountability seems missing. The statement, "I didn't play well enough," feels rare, almost fleeting. That's a small phrase, but it carries immense weight. It sets a tone for the team, for the organization, and for the fans. Compare that approach to other all-time greats. Michael Jordan, for example, rarely shied away from owning losses. Even when his teammates struggled, he looked inward and demanded better from himself. Kobe Bryant dissected his own failures with brutal honesty, never sugarcoating his mistakes or pointing fingers unnecessarily. Tim Duncan, famously quiet in the press, spoke only when necessary, and when he did, it was almost always about what he personally needed to improve. These legends absorbed responsibility. They didn't deflect. They modeled accountability. To be fair, LeBron has had moments of owning mistakes. There are times he has admitted to missteps, to missed shots, to games where he could have performed better. But those moments are becoming increasingly overshadowed by explanations, rationalizations, and outward-pointing critiques. And fans have noticed. Leadership, after all, isn't just about being the most talented player on the court.
My hand, like, all right, come on, we're going to the gym, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're going to go as a team, go eat, we're going here to do this. Like he's so very. I mean, obviously, it's easier for the better players to do it, but for my existence, Jordan didn't do it, Kobe didn't do it. A lot of players that quote unquote have that quote unquote killer mentality aren't that type of person to do it, and he doesn't.
It's about setting a culture, setting a tone. And when the tone consistently points outward after losses, something subtle yet powerful happens. Accountability drifts. Excuses become easier. Reflection becomes optional. And that has a ripple effect throughout the team. This dynamic has even started to show among fans. Some argue that LeBron is simply being honest about the realities of the NBA, about the sheer difficulty of sustaining excellence over 2 decades. Others, however, see exactly the problem. Great leaders don't dwell on obstacles. They focus on solutions. They guide by example, they inspire through action, and they demonstrate how to take responsibility even when circumstances are difficult. Jason Kidd entered this conversation with his characteristic bluntness. He didn't retreat from his comments or soften them when pressed by reporters. He doubled down. Kidd made it clear that this wasn't personal, that he respects LeBron's talent, his legacy, and everything he's accomplished. But Kidd drew a line between greatness and leadership. He emphasized that the players he admired most never relied on excuses. They set an example through how they handled adversity. And here's the crucial point. When you're the face of a franchise, your words and attitude ripple outward. Talk about control, ownership, and self-improvement, and that shapes the mindset of everyone around you. Talk about external factors and challenges, and that too becomes part of the culture. It's subtle, but it matters. A leader's perspective becomes contagious, whether consciously or not. Kidd's comments resonated. Former players joined the conversation, analysts debated it at length, and fans flooded social media with their opinions. Supporters accused Kidd of being overly critical or jealous. Critics praised him for finally saying what many had been thinking privately. Memes, viral clips, and comparisons amplified the debate, turning a discussion about basketball into a broader conversation about leadership, accountability, and the markers of true greatness. LeBron's resume is undeniably untouchable. For championships, all-time scoring leader, 2 decades of dominance, and still performing at an elite level at 40. But legacy isn't only measured by numbers. It's shaped by perception, by how others remember your mindset, your approach, and your influence. Kidd's comments cracked open a narrative that's been quietly growing for years. That LeBron, for all his greatness, often explains losses more than he owns them. Whether this ultimately affects his legacy depends on what comes next. Continued silence and strong play could quiet the noise. A public back and forth could exacerbate it. A visible shift in tone could even strengthen how he's remembered, showing growth in a new phase of his career. But once this conversation exists, it doesn't vanish. It will surface in GOAT debates, in fan discussions, and in retrospectives of his career. Jason Kidd didn't just criticize LeBron. He challenged a mindset, a way of thinking about leadership at the highest level. And whether you agree with him or not, it forced a larger conversation. What does true leadership look like when the stakes are highest, when the spotlight is brightest, and when a career is being defined in real time? The question now isn't only about LeBron's performance on the court, it's about how he chooses to lead as the final chapters of his legendary career are written.